So this is the second lecture we're going to do on gap calcs, and this is going to be, hopefully you've watched the first one and you understand that well enough. And now this one we're going to make a little more complicated. We're going to say we have two beams here, and these two beams are each at 100 centimeters SSD coming in here. But you go into the say the sim, and they're scratching their heads because the doctor has asked for an asymmetric field sizes on these. So they tell you, well, this first beam in here, it's asymmetric. This upper jaw is at 8 centimeters. This lower jaw is at 15 centimeters. And this beam, the upper jaw is at 10 centimeters. The lower jaw is at 13 centimeters. Um, they're looking at their gap calc sheets, and it's talking about half the field size, but the field size isn't symmetric anymore, and so they are looking at you, and they don't know what to do here. And they say, well, the doctor wants to match at a depth here of 6 centimeters. And I've had this situation before. I've gone in there, and I actually, without even pulling out a piece of paper, I'll say, well, the gap's going to be 1.5 centimeters, which seems like a magic trick if you do that, but I'll show you how the magic is done here. So the first thing to look at here is that again, we've got so what we're going to do here is we want to calculate each of these little gaps here, like in the previous problem. And we've got G1 and G2 here. So G1 and G2, we're going to calculate these two gaps. And again, we're still faced with, we've got these little triangles. This is our depth D. We have one triangle here with G1 on one side and D on the other. But actually, we've got part of our work done for you, because even though in the previous example I told you the whole field size, we had to divide by 2 in order to get this part of the triangle, but we already have it in because you've got the jaw setting here, which is 15. So this triangle is simply 15 divided by 100. Now this little gap over here, see G2 is to D, as this jaw, the upper jaw here, is 10 centimeters is to 100. So let's write out our equations here. All right, so here's our two equations we've got. So G1 is to the depth, which is 6, as 15, this side of the triangle, is to that one, 100. Now, so G2, this little part of the gap, is to the depth as 10 is to 100. So really, it's very straightforward. Like I said, it's even easier than the last problem, because we don't really care what this side is. This could be 0, anywhere from 0 up to 20. And the same with here. We don't care what that side of the triangle is doing. We only care about these two. So let's do the math here. Okay, now I want to show you what I was doing in my head when I came up with the answer without any paper. Okay, so we have our gap 1 is 15 divided by 100 times the depth. Gap 2 is 10 divided by 100 times the depth. And let's just write that out here. So the total gap is going to be G1 plus G2. So there's 15 divided by 100 plus 10 divided by 100 times the depth. So I just, this D is the same, so I just added those together. So hopefully you can see where that came from. And that is going to be equal to 15 divided by 100 is 0.15. 10 divided by 100 is 0.1. We're multiplying by our depth, which is 6 centimeters. So that's a total of 0.25 times 6, which is 1/4 of 6, which is 1.5 centimeters. So that's what I was doing in my head, actually. Just taking this lower jaw and the upper jaw, and actually adding them together, which is 25 divided by 100, and multiplying by our depth, which is 6. Just in case that's confusing, let me do it how we probably normally do it. So this gap 1 is 15 divided by 100 times D. Let's bring up the calculator. 15 divided by 100 times 6, so that's 0.9. So this G1 is equal to 0.9. And G2 is 10 divided by 100 times 6 equals 0.6. So G2 is equal to 0.6, and then 0.6 plus 0.9 is 1.5 centimeters. So I hope that isn't confusing, but so this is what I do if I get a situation, if we're treating 100 SSD beams, and you'll give you lots of information, the upper jaw, lower jaw. All I really care about is this lower jaw on the upper beam, the upper jaw on the lower beam, and because the machines are almost always 100 centimeters SSD, I just take this and say that's 0.15 plus 0.1, the two of them together, 0.25, multiplied by the depth, and so I can do that in my head. Like I said, you'll seem like a magician if you do that in the clinic, but it's up to you if you want to tell them what you're doing in your head. But it impresses people anyway.